Shalom to everyone. Before we start, I want to thank all of you and for the support in watching the videos. We need you to please subscribe to the channel. Always like, share channel and videos. May the Lord Almighty always be with you all. The Second Temple stood not only as a structure of stone, but as the living center of prophecy, sacrifice, and divine encounter. For centuries, its courts echoed with the rhythms of ritual, the prayers of a people, and the hope that God's presence still dwelled among them. Yet, the warnings had long been spoken. From the prophets to the writings of the intertestamental age, a pattern had already emerged. Faith strained by division, devotion shadowed by conflict, and a growing distance between outward practice and inward unity. When the destruction came, it was not merely political, it was theological. The loss of the temple shattered the central axis of Jewish life. Sacrifice ceased, priesthood was disrupted, and the sacred geography that once defined the relationship between God and Israel was gone. But the story did not end in ruin. Out of the ashes of Jerusalem, a new form of Judaism began to take shape, not centered on altar or offering, but on study, prayer, and interpretation. The question was no longer how to serve God in a temple, but how to find God without one. In this transformation, the rabbis emerged, not as replacements for the past, but as interpreters of it. They preserved memory, redefined practice, and reimagined the covenant itself. What followed was not simply survival. It was one of the most profound theological revolutions in history. This is the story of that transformation. Part 3: Rabbinic Responses and Theological Transformation. Yavneh and the Rabbinic Revolution. The destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE precipitated the most profound transformation in Jewish history. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai's legendary escape from besieged Jerusalem, smuggled out in a coffin according to tradition, established the academy at Yavneh, creating a new center for Jewish life without the temple. The Mishnah, c. 200 CE records this transition. When the temple was destroyed, the sages decreed that the lulav be taken up everywhere on the first day of the festival, and that the shofar be blown on Shabbat, everywhere. Rosh Hashanah 4:1. These decrees democratized temple rituals. The Talmud, Berachot 28b, preserves Yochanan ben Zakkai's prayer upon establishing Yavneh. May it be your will, Lord our God, that the fear of heaven be upon us like the fear of flesh and blood. The Rabbinic movement transformed Judaism from a temple-centered sacrificial religion to a text-centered study tradition. The synagogue, Beit Knesset, and study house, Beit Midrash, replaced the temple as primary religious institutions. Prayer, tefillah, substituted for sacrifice, korban, with the daily Amidah incorporating references to the temple service. This transformation was not merely institutional but theological. The rabbis reconceptualized the relationship between God, Torah, and Israel without the mediating sanctuary. The Talmud's theological autopsy, the Babylonian Talmud, Yoma 9b, provides the canonical rabbinic explanation for the Second Temple's destruction. Why was the First Temple destroyed? Because of three things: idol worship, sexual immorality, and bloodshed. But why was the Second Temple destroyed? Seeing that people were engaged in Torah, mitzvot, and acts of loving kindness. It was destroyed because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. This famous passage establishes a crucial distinction. The First Temple fell for the gross sins the prophets condemned, but the Second Temple fell for a subtler, more insidious sin: internal division and gratuitous hatred among Jews. The Talmud continues with the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, where a feast invitation mistake leads to national catastrophe. Because of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, Jerusalem was destroyed. Gittin 55b, 56a. This narrative illustrates how personal animosity escalates to national destruction. The theological significance is profound. Ritual observance without ethical relationships is worthless. The Talmud's diagnosis suggests that the Second Temple's destruction was more tragic because the people were outwardly observant, yet inwardly fractured. This became a permanent Jewish ethical teaching. External piety must be matched by internal unity. Lamentations Rabbah and Midrashic mourning. Lamentations Rabbah, 5th-6th century CE. The Midrashic commentary on Lamentations expands the biblical text with Aggadic narratives, elaborating the destruction's trauma. The Patilta, Proem, opens with 24 parables comparing Israel's situation. One famous passage describes God weeping with Israel. When the temple was destroyed, the Holy One, blessed be He, wept and said, "Woe is me! What have I done? I caused my Shekinah to dwell below for the sake of Israel, and now that they have sinned, I have returned to my former habitation. Would that I had not created them." Proem 24. This anthropomorphic portrayal of divine grief validates human mourning. Another passage describes the destruction's cosmic scope. When the temple was destroyed, the Holy One, blessed be He, said to the ministering angels, "Come, let us weep." Proem 25. The Midrash interprets every verse of Lamentations as alluding to specific historical events: the siege, the famine, the burning, the exile. Chapter 1's Like a Widow becomes the basis for narratives about the Sanhedrin's dissolution, the priestly course's cessation, and the Davidic dynasty's interruption. These Midrashim preserve the emotional immediacy of the destruction centuries later, ensuring that Tisha B'Av remained not merely historical commemoration, but relived trauma. The Omer and calendar transformations. The counting of the Omer, 49 days from Passover to Shavuot, underwent significant transformation after the temple's destruction. Originally tied to the barley offering brought on the second day of Passover, Leviticus 23:1014. The Omer became a period of semi-mourning in Rabbinic Judaism. The Mishnah, Yevamot 62b, records, Rabbi Akiva had 12,000 pairs of disciples, and all of them died in one period because they did not treat each other with respect. The Talmud dates this plague between Passover and Shavuot, transforming the Omer into a memorial for the students' deaths and, by extension, for the destruction's casualties. Later, Kabbalistic tradition, 16th century, reframed the Omer as a period of spiritual preparation, with each day corresponding to the 7 lower Sephirot. The agricultural commandment, "You shall bring the sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest," Leviticus 23:10, became purely commemorative. This transformation exemplifies how Rabbinic Judaism preserved biblical commandments while completely recontextualizing their performance. The Omer's transformation also reflects the shift from agricultural to calendrical time, from land-based to diaspora Judaism, the Amidah and temple memory, the central Jewish prayer. The Amidah, standing prayer, preserves the temple's memory in its structure and content. The traditional 18 or 19 blessings include explicit temple references. The Avodah blessing, retained in Orthodox liturgy, states, "Be favorable, Lord our God, to your people Israel and to their prayer, and restore the service to the Holy of Holies of your temple. The fire offerings of Israel and their prayer accept with love. May our eyes witness your return to Zion." The Hebrew ta'avor, accept favorably, and Hashiva, restore, express yearning for cultic restoration. The Modim blessing thanks God for our lives entrusted to your hand, for our souls entrusted to you, for your miracles that are with us every day, and for your wonders and goodness at all times. The Sim Shalom, grant peace, concludes, "Bless us, our Father, all of us as one with the light of your face." These prayers, recited 3 times daily, maintain the temple as a living presence in Jewish consciousness. The Amidah structure, parallel to the temple service's progression, creates liturgical continuity across the destruction's rupture. Maimonides and Rationalist Theology. Moses Maimonides, 1135-1204, in his Mishnah Torah and Guide for the Perplexed, developed a sophisticated theological framework for understanding temple destruction. In Hilchot Melachim, Laws of Kings, 11:1-2, he writes, "The King Messiah will arise and restore the kingdom of David to its former glory. He will rebuild the temple and gather the dispersed of Israel." Maimonides codifies the 13 principles of faith, including the 12th. "I believe with perfect faith in the coming of the Messiah, and even though he may tarry, I will wait daily for his coming." In the Guide, 332, he explains the sacrificial system as pedagogical accommodation. It is impossible to go suddenly from one extreme to the other. Human nature will not allow a person suddenly to discontinue everything to which he has been accustomed. The temple's destruction, in this view, prepares for a higher worship, prayer, and intellectual contemplation. Yet Maimonides insists on the literal restoration of sacrifices in the Messianic era, rejecting purely allegorical interpretation. His synthesis preserves tradition while rationalizing it, acknowledging the destruction's tragedy, while affirming ultimate restoration. Kabbalistic interpretations, Zohar and Lurianic thought. Medieval Kabbalah transformed temple theology through mystical interpretation. The Zohar, 13th century, identifies the temple with the Sephirah of Malchut, kingdom/divine presence. The temple below corresponds to the temple above. Zohar 128a. The destruction represents not merely historical catastrophe, but cosmic rupture, a disruption in the flow of divine energy Shefa through the Sephirot. The Zohar interprets the temple vessels as corresponding to aspects of the divine persona: the Ark to Bina, the Menorah to Tiferet, the showbread table to Malchut. Isaac Luria's Kabbalah, 16th century, developed the doctrine of Shavirat HaKelim, breaking of the vessels, where the temple's destruction reflects and participates in a primordial cosmic catastrophe. The Nitzotzot, sparks of holiness scattered at the destruction, require tikkun, repair through righteous action. This mystical framework transforms the destruction from mere punishment into an opportunity for cosmic restoration. The temple's physical absence becomes the occasion for spiritual work, gathering the scattered sparks through Torah and mitzvot. Lurianic Kabbalah thus provides a redemptive interpretation of destruction, where exile and devastation are stages in a larger process of cosmic healing. The Vilna Gaon and restoration activism. Elijah of Vilna, 1720-1797. The Gaon genius represented a stream of Jewish thought that actively prepared for temple restoration. Unlike medieval passivity regarding the Messiah, the Gaon and his disciples engaged in practical preparation. His commentary on the Siddur emphasizes temple-related prayers. More significantly, his students, who immigrated to the land of Israel in 1808-1810, the Perushim, established foundations for what would become the Old Yishuv, the pre-Zionist religious community in Jerusalem. The Gaon's teachings on the Halachah, Jewish law regarding temple service, compiled in Bera HaGola and other works, preserved technical knowledge. His commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, Biur HaGra, includes detailed discussions of sacrifices, priestly duties, and temple architecture. This represents a shift from purely memorializing the temple to practically preparing for its rebuilding. The Gaon's influence extends to modern religious Zionism, where his combination of intense Torah study with active engagement in the land of Israel provides precedent for contemporary temple activism. His legacy demonstrates that Jewish responses to destruction include not only mourning, but preparation. Hasidic transformations. The Inner Temple, the Hasidic movement 18th century onward, developed radical interiorizations of temple theology. The Baal Shem Tov, c. 1700-1760 taught, the sanctuary which Moses made in the wilderness was a copy of the sanctuary on high, and the sanctuary on high is a copy of the sanctuary in the soul of man. Keter Shem Tov 1. This teaching transforms the temple from external architecture to internal spiritual reality. Dov Ber of Mezerich, the Maggid, developed this further. Every Jew must build a sanctuary within himself to offer up the animal soul as a sacrifice. Likutim, Yekarim. The Tikkunim, soul rectifications, of the early Hasidic masters often involved visualizing the temple service during prayer. The Nusak, liturgical rite, of various Hasidic courts preserve special melodies for temple-related prayers, creating experiential connection. Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, 1772-1810, taught that hit boded dut, solitary meditation in the fields, could achieve what the high priest accomplished in the Holy of Holies. This radical democratization, every individual becoming a high priest, represents the furthest development of temple interiorization. Yet Hasidism did not negate physical restoration. Rabbi Nachman's famous statement, "My fire will burn until the Messiah comes," expressed confidence in ultimate redemption, including the temple's rebuilding. 19th century responses: Reform and Orthodoxy. The 19th century witnessed divergent Jewish responses to temple memory. Reform Judaism, emerging in Germany, largely spiritualized the temple, viewing sacrifices as primitive and prayer as evolved. The 1844 Brunswick Conference of Reform rabbis declared, "The sacrificial service in Jerusalem was only a transitional stage in the religious development of our people." The Pittsburgh Platform, 1885, stated, "We hold that all such Mosaic and rabbinical laws as regulate diet, priestly purity, and dress originated in ages and under the influence of ideas entirely foreign to our present mental and spiritual state. This represented a decisive break with restorationist hope." Orthodox Judaism, conversely, intensified temple memory. Samson Raphael Hirsch, 1808-1888, wrote, "The loss of the temple and the cessation of the sacrificial service were not improvements, but the deepest tragedies of our history." His Horeb and commentary on the Siddur emphasized that every prayer references the temple. The Musaf service, with its detailed recollection of the sacrificial order, Seder HaKorbanot, became a bulwark against reform. This 19th century polarization between those who saw the destruction as progressive evolution and those who experienced it as ongoing catastrophe shapes contemporary Judaism's temple theology. Shalom and may the Lord of Israel guide and be with all, always. Amen.